In the present time that we live today, nothing is as it is. Everything is confined. Nobody is honest. Nobody has much to say. Everything is the opposite of what's actually going on and happening in different parts of the world. Let's say in the Middle East, let's say the news about different groups, about different topics, most of which is the opposite of what's actually being projected for us to watch. In order for control over every individual, there needs to be a forward understanding for every individual. Now, a human being has needs, the essentials, from the basics: air to breathe, water to drink, food to eat, shelter, a mate, and a life that comes afterwards. Now, when these things are being manipulated for each and every individual, and the only way to have these things is through money and control, you realize that anything is said and projected for individuals to be controlled in a way. And everything is political. There's not a yes or a no answer in anything in which we are being projected on. Now, the vision that's been projected for us to see is not the truth. It's the opposite to the truth. We have to understand that these fundamental things that a human being needs requires something to gain. You're going to need money in order to have food, water, and so on. So humanity at this moment in time is under threat. Whether we understand what this threat is or not, that is the question. Because everything we're seeing and believing is a lie. There is no one thing out there that we see or view as the truth. Because the truth is anything but control. With the truth there will be no mutual understanding to relate each individual and have control over each individual. Now we have to understand that not everything is as it seems. And that we're not the only creation out there. It's stated in all the religions from Prophet Abraham that introduced God. The God of Abraham, God of Moses, Jesus, Muhammad. That God created man, God created spirit, and everything that exists. Now this is a text in the Bible, this is a text in the Quran, and this has been mentioned in the original Torah and the scriptures from Abraham. So we're not alone, and we're not the only creation. And for those who don't believe that there is a creator of everything, that is because the creator of all that exists gives every individual a chance. And at some point shows you experiences that you have in order to understand that there is a creator in control of the world, that has that can do anything, but it's given everybody a chance. Now, we have to understand the basics and where it came from. Now we, individuals, as a human being, you need the small sources in order to live. From the air we breathe, the water, food, shelter, and other people, to live. Now we have to understand that we're not alone, we're not the only creation. Now if we all look back in history, we would understand that there has been a lot of stories that have been passed on, but the only ones that have made it and are clear are the religious stories, are the most clear and understandable stories. They have survived millions and millions of years, not millions of years, thousands of years, for us to have an idea, a basic idea. With the monuments that have been left, with the ancestors, and they all point at one thing, that's God. With what's essential to us human beings, we would understand that the control over everyone, every human being, is tightened. And the one thing that is not being produced in our societies is a correct form of religion, which is the truth about why each and every individual is created and is here. I mean, we can clearly see that this world is not exactly the safest place for a human being, because we're vulnerable. People die very quickly. Anything could happen to a human. So we have to understand that a human being does not want to harm anything, whether it's an animal, a human, or so on. But a human being can be manipulated and deceived into harming other people. So our first reaction is not to do anything wrong. Our first reaction is always to enjoy something, or to see something and to build on something. So we understand that we're not the kind of creature or being that wants to harm anything or destroy anything. Our first reaction is to understand and to build on our curiosities. So we have to understand there's something that manipulates us individuals, because we don't want to destroy or kill anything straight away. There has to be some kind of powers or some kind of influence that makes you want to do such a thing. That's where we see in religions that have stated that spirits also exist apart from man. Now, in modern Christianity, spirits is described as a holy thing, a holy spirit. Spirits are described as we have spirits. In modern days, this is the case. But clearly in the Bible, in the Quran, it's stated that God created man, God created spirits, and all that exists. So it means there's separate. There's man, there's spirits, and all that is. So again, religion here is being manipulated and not accepted. That spirits are another creation that exists. In fact, it's pointing at religion that is the problem. But all religion is peace and guidance to how to live your life in order not to sin and not to be a bad person. Now, the 10 Commandments by Moses was do not kill. Now that's a part of religion. Do not do this, do not do that, do not sin. So we understand that nothing in religion means kill and destroy. But every event that's happening in today's world is pointing at religious people and their sectarian influence on the world. So we have to understand, going back to the fact that the human being, us, is being projected on, giving us something to see, hear, witness on television, on all sources, by people around us. That's where we have to understand that we have a mind that makes us a human being. Now what makes us unique as a creation? It would be our mind, right? The way we think, the way we create technologies, computers, sciences, and elevate for as high as we can go. Now, to have a mind means you make decisions. You think about things and you make choices. Doesn't that mean that we are free? We were first free in the world to make our own decisions. So doesn't that mean that God created us free in this world to use our mind and our senses and all that we have to make decisions? So if God created us like this, why would God force us into religion? Because God has the power to force everybody into doing something if really God wanted to. But there is no force in anybody. Everybody has a mind, freedom of choice to make their own decisions based on their lives. So why is force being practiced on us in the world we live in? Now we have the Christianity that's saying you have to believe the word and be reborn again in order to be saved and for your sins to be wiped out because of Jesus that came and died for us. He died for our sins. But as an individual, we know we are not forced to believe the word, to be reborn again in order to be saved, and we make mistakes every day. So if Jesus came and died for everybody, for everybody's sins, so at that time Jesus was dying for all those people's sins. Well, at this time there's nobody dying for anybody's sins. Now that isn't fair. Now we have to understand God is fair. God's equal with all the creation. Now that's one point. How comes in the Islam today they are preaching you have to do exactly what Allah says, you have to do everything that they say as well as they preach in order to be a Muslim? And if you don't do everything that has been said to you, or you don't agree with something, then you are not a Muslim. How can you judge people based on what you are saying to them? Again, it's showing force onto people. To go out there and fight for something other than your own land and country, defending yourself, is wrong. That's the basic of logic. You cannot go out there and attack someone based on their beliefs, because every individual is free, has a mind, has decisions of their own to live the life that they are. We die and we are judged. Or else the point of being judged is for every person. It's not for you to be forced into anything, because if you're forced, then there's no need to be judged. If you don't agree with other people, you can't go and harm these people, because harming others is the basis of making a sin, is to harm someone or to make big mistakes that affects other people and so on. So in today's world we're seeing that religion is a forced indoctrinated on everybody. But God has given each individual that God has created a mind, freedom to live, and decisions to make. So we understand that what's being taught in religion is not what God has created. It's not what God has created. Now we have to understand God. God is not something that needs anybody. God doesn't need anybody. But for us to have a life that makes sense, and for us to be helped in our life, we are the ones that need God's help. Now God stated in the Bible, in Christianity and in Islam, that there will be saviors and there will be representatives of God to save the people, mostly in the end times. Now this has been stated in the old scriptures that represents religion. Now, as we see today of the way that religion is being used to create violence, killings, and justify acts of violence and killings through religion, we would understand that the only thing that is against religion would be the world and where we are today. Now the world right now is under the hands and control of governments. It is being governed. So we have to understand that the laws, rules are all created for us individuals in the world. Now if we look back at the Middle East, it's independent countries. There is no international global companies in the Middle East. For instance, in Iraq, in Syria, in Yemen, these three countries under attack today, they have no companies that are global like you would see in Saudi Arabia, like you would see in Dubai and in Qatar and in these other countries that are in Jordan that are not being attacked. Now we have to see like what kind of businesses am I talking about? Okay, we can say banks like HSBC, Lloyds and Santander and so on are in all these global countries like McDonald's, KFC, supermarkets are in all the world's countries. You'll see them in every country. But they're not in independent countries like Syria, like Yemen, like Iraq. They're not in those countries. And we can clearly see what's going on in those countries. And we can clearly see that the Jewish people in Israel are the ones that are against the regime. The Christians and Muslims in Palestine, in Iraq, are against what's going on in there. And we can see all these bombings that are happening in most let's say, religious communities, mostly Shia Muslim establishments like mosques and stuff are being targeted, and mostly religious industries like churches are being targeted, and Jewish community are being described as attacking the Palestinians, but the Jewish community are the ones that are against the regime of Israel and are protesting against the regime. Now we have to go back to what's being projected on each individual that's living in this world. Now this is what's being projected, and it's the opposite of these individuals, because they all happen to be against what's happening. Because we know it's a political world we're in, so every individual has to be their own politician. Every individual has to be their own politician based on himself and his life, because that's how the world is based on. This theme in the world is all politics. There's no yes or no. Nothing is as it is. It's the opposite. Therefore, for us to have a mind means we make the decisions. And for us to be peaceful creatures that do not want to harm anybody or do anything against anybody else unless forced upon or manipulated or deceived into doing so. Now we can be anybody. Like I could come up on here and say I am a let's just say I am an astronaut. I've been going in space. I've been in the space station before. Now, there's no justification whether I am or not. The viewers, some may believe and some may not. Now, people can say anything they want. If we look back at space, we'd understand that there's a force of gravity that pulls everything down. And when you hit a certain point, you will no longer have the force of gravity. You'll be at a stage that you will be floating around. But if we understand that the world is round and it has a moon going round the world, so there's a force at play that keeps the moon going around the world, and the satellites being shot up in space are going around the world when they hit the stratosphere and no longer are pulled by gravity. Then we'll understand there's a force at play that keeps everything going round. So you can't go any further. There is no oxygen, there is no way there is no force for movement. And there is no oxygen in order to burn fuel. And there is no force for movement. So again, we can see what's being shown to us about these topics about space and these rockets being sent off to Mars and to Jupiter and to Pluto and stuff cannot be true. And what's being projected on us is science fiction and computer animated visual effects, computerized scenery. So what do we believe in this world that we live in? What do each and every one of us believe? Is it what we see, what we visualize? Because most people right now only believe what they see and hear. And that is the basics of a human being's understanding of what's available for a human being. So how is it for each and every human being to be projected on? And worked on into believing something? It's very easy, right? But that's why we have a mind. That is what makes us individuals and creation as a creation, and that freedom we have to decide to make decisions based on our minds as a special creation that is favored by God. Now it's been stated in Christianity that God chose man over spirit. So God chose Jesus and God chose us. But the spirit did not accept Adam and Eve, that's man. That's been stated in religion. And the same with the Quran, Islam. So we would understand there's also spirits in this world. And if they didn't accept our ancestors, that means they do not accept us today. So in order for us to understand that the only thing we are believing is what we see and what we hear and what's available and projected onto us, then we are not believing that there is other sources, other creations, as in the spirits and but all the blame has been put on religion and religious people, and to understand, and religion is to understand God. And in religion is stated about these evil spirits, and if everything's being blamed on religious institution, religious people, and this sectarian problem between religious, then we would understand that it's religion that is shown to be the enemy. And what's in control of the world, the politics and the theme, is the good guy. That's what is being shown and projected for us. Now I could sit here and say I'm an astronaut. Now, anybody can believe what they want. But who has control over matters of the world? Isn't most of the countries, except for these specific individual countries, have McDonald's, have KFC, have Santander, HSBC, and so on? Does that not mean that all of these countries are similar? And aren't all these countries all have the same computer systems, the same means of transfer and banks transactions? They all have the same system. Isn't the police called police in every of the countries? Aren't all the countries today in this world have the same problem, this kind of economical debt crisis that's in play? That's the new thing for explaining all the economical problems. Are we not seeing all these new natural disasters happening on a daily basis? You can visit my website and there's a link to see the natural events that's occurring. There's 1 or 2, 3 new natural events on a daily basis occurring in the world today, and what we've seen, there has been heat waves in India, Pakistan, Italy, Germany, and other countries like never before, killing thousands of people. Thousands of people have died in India, Pakistan alone, 4,000 or 5,000, because of a heat wave that's never happened before. Nobody has died of this kind of heat. Aren't these events strange? Doesn't that make us think that in today's world that is against religion and is against peace, and all these events are starting to occur, doesn't that make an individual think? Now that gives us an idea of what history was also like. In history there was always rulers, and they also had power over the population, and at that time it was a more brutal and direct way. Slavery was obvious, and the forces were obvious. Now it has been stated in religion that has always been representatives in this world that's decided by God in order to help the individuals in every era. Now before there was Moses, Noah, Jesus, and they all performed miracles for those people that required it the most. And at every point the people were saved. Now, what are we facing in today's world? Isn't this an ongoing terrorist threat that is creating problems for each individual living all across the world? Isn't there this nuclear threat that is also being projected? Isn't there natural disasters that are starting to take place on a more rapid and frequent manner? Aren't we the ones that are vulnerable? And hasn't history proved that there has been explanations of events in the past? So we can conclude that there were the same kind of rulership and the same kind of happenings that happened before. And isn't religion the one that is being accused of all of this? And do we not have a mind to make our own decisions as individuals, and do our own researches and understand our own way of thinking? And don't we die alone, or do we die as a group? And isn't everybody judged specifically on what they do and what they achieve? So we can understand that we have a mind, we have the resources and materials in this political world to make our own decisions and understandings. And it has been stated that there will be representatives of God brought down to earth again in order to save the people when there is complete destruction and unstoppable forces at play that are making most of the decisions. Aren't we facing that today? Isn't that what we're seeing today? Which that brings me to the fact that if we have a time to find out the truth about why we are created and what is our purpose and the meaningful way of life, and in order for us to seek help so we don't have to be trapped is the only way is from God, and to be saved then there's sources on my website that can show you the basics. If you have time, have a read